What's up, crackers? I just recently played through the entirety of New Tales from the Borderlands, and I have a lot to say about it. But I decided to put it in the format of a world-famous Arachnica rant video, as this format is just as disorganized and ill-prepared as I think is fitting for New Tales. Now here I am to bring a great revelation, probably something you've never heard before, but New Tales from the Borderlands is bad. I know, please leave your updates below, my heckin' chonkers. But beyond just being bad, I need to make it clear that this game is fucking awful. Like, worse than what anyone had prepared me for. I watched the entirety of Eruption Fang's video on this game, which if you haven't, I highly recommend it because it's a fantastic video. I'll leave a link to it down in the description. But that didn't even come close to showcasing just how awful of an experience this game was. Not only is it just unfun and not funny and has no fucking value whatsoever, but it goes on for so goddamn long. The average time to beat this game is 9 to 10 hours. This game could definitely be cut down to probably half that at like 4 or 5 hours, and that's while keeping all the scenes intact. Just cutting them down to the absolute bare minimum of what actually needs to happen in them. But even then, I'm sure you can cut it down to like half of that, because I think there's really only like 2 hours of actual storytelling here. So you have 2 hours of actual story being stretched to 10 hours, while through that entire duration, it's not only insulting your intelligence, but wasting your fucking time. Now to get a little subjective here, we're gonna talk about the humor of this game real quick. And to preface, I'd also like to say I feel like the Borderlands humor has been pretty consistent throughout the entire franchise. I think from BL1 to BL3, the humor's been the same. I don't really understand a lot of the complaints about the humor in 3, because the humor of these games has always been incredibly immature, filled with shit jokes and incredibly outdated memes. Yet somehow the humor of this game is a fucking mockery of even that. It is like that Marvel humor type thing, like the, oh, they're right behind me, aren't they? Type shit, but just constant. This game doesn't give you like a second to do anything. There's no time allowed to process anything that happens, you know, the few things that do happen. There's no time given to sit with any emotions whatsoever. Literally, there was only a single serious moment actually played seriously for longer than like 0.5 seconds. Anytime there was some sort of moment that could be even remotely emotional, it was immediately followed by some really dumb joke, or Fran being incredibly horny. Which Fran, by the way, her entire purpose is to just be a fucking predator, pretty much. Like, her entire character, a word I'm going to be using very loosely for the duration of this video, is pretty much just the conventionally unattractive person who makes very horny remarks about literally everything, which is already a really shitty and overplayed and just boring trope, but like, Fran is somehow worse. I don't think I've ever physically cringed as hard at a character as I have with some of the things that Fran would say. Like, some of this shit would make me genuinely uncomfortable, and on stream I often talk about stirring, which if you don't know what that is, it's probably for the best. But that also means that you don't watch me over on twitch.tv/Arachnica, so shameless plug, go follow. But Fran isn't the only example of a character just being a single trope. That's pretty much every single character in this game. Octavio is just a fucking bumbling idiot who likes business shit, you know, your average figgle-bottom male. Louis is just robot that doesn't understand social cues, which, well, he is like the fan favorite currently and is a pretty good character just because he's not nearly as annoying as the rest. Even some of his jokes get fucking overplayed, because if they think that something's funny in this game, they're gonna do it 20 times. Even if it was funny, it will no longer be funny by the end. And Anu is just young Sheldon. But that is your main cast of characters. Again, term being used incredibly loosely because these are not characters that you have to deal with for 10 hours. These are just really shitty jokes. Tedior is also taken as a joke, and at no point is actually a threat whatsoever. They let our main cast of characters get away with the dumbest shit imaginable. Every single soldier is not taken seriously whatsoever, and at no point are they treated as a threat. The only threatening character is Susan Coldwell. However, there is a scene where she becomes a big fucking monster because she has the 2 crystals jammed in her, and Octavio actually starts dancing multiple times as she does barely anything to attempt to kill him, as is her goal within that moment. This game is fucking unrelenting, and it prioritizes trying to make a joke over anything else. And because of the complete lack of any sort of emotional value that these characters ever have, and how again there ends up being only a single moment actually taken seriously, the game is almost self-aware in this fact because it treats them as jokes. The problem is it doesn't really even totally commit to that, because it almost expects you at times who care about them, despite not ever giving you a single reason to. I've never felt more dead inside than when I was playing New Tales, because I genuinely just felt absolutely no emotion. So I mean, hey, if you're one of those people that want to be a fucking stoic badass or whatever the hell, this is the game for you. But it's not only characters that are just the most boring, plain fucking boiled down to nothing but consumable slop, because that's also just how they treat the story. The Borderlands universe has always been a dystopian nightmare, being a satirical take on extremely late-stage capitalism where CEOs of megacorporations are like literally the god kings of the universe. Like, it's literally just money is a one-to-one correlation with power. Yet this game seems to miss the entire point of that and instead takes the route of saying the exact same thing but directly to you. Coming back to the insulting your intelligence part of things, there's literally moments where it just seems like a character's gonna stare at the camera and tell you that capitalism is bad. Which, yeah, the games have been doing that for over a decade, just in a way better, way more entertaining, and way more impactful way. But this game does the same thing in the most lazy and boring possible way, and pats itself on the back like it was doing something amazing that no one else has ever done before. The entire game seems like it was written by an AI that was trained solely off of Twitter threads, because everything about it is just lowest common denominator. And I want to be clear, I don't blame anyone who has their name tied to this game. Even if it's someone in the actual writing credits, I do not blame them. I'm sure that the devs and the writers did the best that they could given a project that they probably didn't want to create. I really don't think anyone wanted to make this game. I think it was probably forced onto a lot of people by higher-ups. And again, I feel sorry for anyone who had to have their name tied to this. Now, the big thing here is the greater impact on the story of the Borderlands universe. And I do think that this story of New Tales irreparably damages the integrity of the Borderlands universe as a whole. That being said, though, literally nothing of actual substance happens. Before playing the game myself, I was under the impression that the entire game just needs to be retconned for BL4 to even have a chance. But at the end of my final stream of this game, I had this epiphany. Someone asked me about my overall thoughts and how I thought that this would affect BL4, and I was about to go into this entire rant about how there's no way BL4 could salvage this story without a full retcon of the game. But as I was about to begin, I realized there was quite literally no events that took place that actually have any sort of greater external impact. And I know this sounds weird, but in that moment, fresh out of the game, I thought hard and couldn't come up with anything beyond the mere existence of the rocks. Because there wasn't even really any impact from the Tidor invasion. That was completely fixed by the end of the game. And the rocks, again, the only real impact that they have is that they just exist. But at the end of the game, they're kind of just jettisoned out into space and lost. So while they exist and they could make a return, they could also just be completely fucking lost forever, never to make any sort of reappearance ever again, and therefore there would be absolutely no repercussions to New Tales existing. So I think there is a path forward without retconning New Tales, where you just completely fucking ignore it, because honestly, there's not too much to ignore anyways. I know a lot of people think that they're gonna use these stones in BL4 to revive a lot of past characters. The big one is Maya, but I'm gonna be honest, even if they get the stones, that's gonna require them to, one, have her dust still, and two, for the stones to actually be able to revive someone from dust particles. But while I think there is potential for the events of New Tales to not have any impact on the story, I did say that I think that it irreparably damages the integrity of the universe, and yeah, I think it does. There's a lot of weird, goofy shit that just happens in this game that I think just kind of takes away from the universe as a whole. The big one is that these crystals are like sentient god beings. We don't really see the red one, presumably because it's kind of shattered, but the green one talks to Anu in her head. And listen, I know this is a universe that has some space magic with sirens, and I mean, like, Iridian technology is kind of magical, and there's a bunch of different aliens and shit, but I don't know, man, something about weird fucking demigod rocks just, it's a little too much for me. Maybe if it was an idea that was introduced slightly better, I could be more open to it, but as it stands right now, that fucking throws me off. So yeah, I do think the existence of the stones does damage the integrity of the story overall, but it's possible that it only damages it to those of us lobotomized enough to play New Tales, and it will never actually impact the story ever again. Literally nothing else happened in this game. Well, except for the deaths of the only two characters that I actually liked. Of course, the fan favorite Louis, he does unfortunately die. Overall, he's alright. Not really an interesting character though, just more so a fun character that isn't as atrociously annoying as the main cast. Again, he did have some moments where he bothered me, but overall, it's a cool character design, fun guy, a perfect 7 out of 10 fellow. It would have been nice to see him return in some capacity, but unfortunately, he got fucking blasted. But the big one for me, while I'm not entirely a fan fan of how she was characterized in the game, Stapleface is probably one of the coolest characters that came out of it. For those unaware, Stapleface is a psycho that you meet pretty early on in the game, but she doesn't really show up again until the end. She's a psycho who started to regain her sanity. She's able to speak, albeit a little goofy. She's definitely still a little crazy, but I mean, she is significantly more sane than your average psycho. I mean, again, she can actually form sentences. And I think that this gives her great potential as a character. Some of you might think that she's kind of similar to Krieg, but Krieg is a friendly psycho that is mentally aware but physically unable to not be a psycho. He's a different type of psycho from the usual psychos, but also from Stapleface. Stapleface is kind of similar, but instead of just actually being a psycho but mentally aware, she is actually regaining her sanity, actively becoming not a psycho, and this is a very cool idea that hasn't been explored in a character in this universe yet. This could have been a very cool character to have return in some capacity or to stick around, but she fucking died. Not only did she die, but she died with Anu, who at this point had the revive stone embedded in her body, the same stone which, while embedded, is shown to let Anu heal and revive people by touch. And she touches Stapleface, she just touches her where she's armored. Had Anu just like fucking slapped her in the face or something, she would have been totally fine. But nope, instead the only interesting character that is introduced in the entire 10 hours of this game dies with the biggest Deus Ex Machina fucking plot device staring him right in the face, literally not even a foot away. This game is shit.